Okay, so we are going to get started on this hat. So I've already put my slip knot on my hook. So now I'm going to chain 2, and this hat is worked top down. And we are going to work 8 single crochet in the second chain from our hook. Now if you prefer the magic circle, then make 8 single crochet in your magic circle. I'm not a huge fan of the magic circle. I think this way is a little bit sturdier, but do what you like best. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, and then our last stitch, number 8. And we will join with a slip stitch in our first stitch. So we've completed our first round. Alright, so now I'm ready for round 2. So I've chained 1, and we're going to do a variation of a double crochet stitch. So we have our 8 single crochet here. We've joined with a slip stitch in our first stitch. So we're going to get started for round 2. So we're chaining 1, and we're doing a variation, as I said before, of a double crochet stitch. I think it's called herringbone, but I'm not completely sure. But what you'll need to do is yarn over just like you normally would for a double crochet. Insert your hook right in the same stitch, pull up your loop. So now you have your 3 loops on your hook. Now normally you would yarn over, but we're not going to do that yet. So you are just going to pull through the first loop. So now you have 2 loops. Now you yarn over, chain 1 or pull up a loop. So you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over again, pull through 2. So we're going to pop 2 stitches in each. So yarn over, right back in that same stitch, 3 loops, pull through the first one, yarn over, chain 1, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So I'm going to continue to do that all the way around, working 2 stitches in each, and I'll have a total of 16. Alright, so I'm at my last stitch. I need to work 2 stitches in there, so this is stitch 15. So I'm going to finish that guy off. Oops, got my tail in there. Goodness gracious, get out of there. One of those weird things that can happen when you crochet sometimes. Alright, so that's 15 and 16, and all joins in this pattern will be made with a slip stitch. So right there is my first stitch. Pop in my slip stitch, and I've completed round 2 for a total of 16. So now we're going to chain 1, we're going to turn. Usually you don't turn when working in the round, but with this stitch pattern, I think it looks nicest when you turn. So we are going to yarn over again, and we're going to do a little bit more increasing. So you're going to insert your hook right in the same stitch. Got 3 loops on your hook, and we're doing that same variation of our double crochet stitch, the herringbone, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, so if it's wrong, I apologize. I'm really bad at knowing the names of the stitches. I can look at a stitch and see how it's done and make it, but I don't know what it's called. Same thing with songs. I'm terrible. I can sing along to the song, but I have no idea who sings it. What it's called? I don't know. Okay, let me get back on track here. So we've made 1 double crochet, or variation of it, herringbone, whatever it's called, and in the next stitch we are going to work 2 stitches in the next one. So we're going to do that all the way around this hat. We are going to work, think of it as a sequence of 2. So this stitch is going to be 1 stitch, and then your second stitch is going to be 2 stitches. And this hat's being made top down, so it needs to grow a little bit. So there's our 1 stitch, and then 2 stitches in the second one. So I'm going to continue to do that all the way around for round 3. And all of our odd rows will be the wrong side of our hat, and our even rows are going to be the right side of our hat. So I will meet you back at the end of round 3. Alright, I just completed round 3, so now I'm going to chain 1 and turn. In round 3 you'll have a total of 24 stitches. So now we are going to start round 4, and round 4 is our right side round. So we're going to do the same thing of yarning over and working our stitch right in that same stitch, and we're going to be doing this stitch for just about the rest of this hat here. So hopefully you like it. Get comfy with it. Alright, so now we're going to do a sequence of 3 with our increasing. So this is stitch 1, just 1 stitch in stitch 2, and then 2 stitches in stitch 3. Oops. So we'll do that again. So here's stitch 1. So if you think of it as a sequence of 3, stitch 2, and then 2 stitches in stitch 3. And just continue to do that all the way around for round 4. Alright, so we just finished up round 4, and we should have a total of 32 stitches. So now we're going to start round 5, and that's a wrong side row. We're going to chain 1, we're turning, and now we're going to work in a sequence of 4. So we yarn over, put our hook right in the same stitch. Oops. Sometimes the stitch goes like really, it flows real easily, and then other times it's like it doesn't want to work. That was one of those times. So that's stitch 1. This is stitch 2. So we are at stitch 3. And here's stitch 4. We're going to pop 2 stitches in. As the previous round we increased by sequence of 3, now we're doing a sequence of 4. So I'm going to do that again. So here is stitch number 1. Two, 3, and then pop 2 stitches in stitch 4. So I'm going to continue to do that all the way around my hat for round 5. Okay, so I just finished up round 5. Going to join in my first stitch with a slip stitch, chain 1, and I'm going to turn. At the end of round 5 you will have a total of 40 stitches. So now we're going to do round 6, and we're going to decrease by 5, or not decrease, increase, I'm sorry. So chained 1, turned, and we're going to work our herringbone stitch right in there. I think it's called that, or variation of a double crochet stitch. So here's stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, and then in stitch 5 we're going to pop 2 stitches in there. So here's stitch 5, so here's 1 and 2. So we'll do that one more time. So stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, and in stitch number 5 put 2 stitches in there. And we'll just continue that all the way around our hat for round 6. Okay, so I just finished round 6. I'm going to join in my first stitch, and now we'll be ready for round 7. So we'll chain 1, turn, and again, wrong side rows, or rounds, I'm sorry, or odd rows. So what am I trying to say here? I still screwed up. Odd rounds are the wrong side. So we're going to chain 1, we turn. It's not that hard, really. Alright, so we're going to work in a sequence of 6. So we are still increasing. So after round 6, you would have 48 stitches. So this is stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then in stitch 6 we're going to put our 2 stitches in there. So there's stitch 6, there's 1 and 2, and we'll do that again, and still working in the same stitch, the herringbone stitch. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, stitch number 5, and there is stitch 6. So the hat is slowly growing, is what we want, turning into that hat shape. So we're sticking our 2 stitches in there, and we'll just continue that all the way around for round 7. Okay, so we're finishing up round 7, and at the end of round 7 you would have 56 stitches. So now we're going to chain 1 and turn. So we're back on the right side round, so we're on round 8. As you can see, it's starting to curve, cup a little bit is what we want. So now we're going to work in a sequence of 7. So we're yarning over, so stitch 1, 2, probably be done increasing soon. And if you wanted to make your hat smaller for a small child, then you can certainly stop when you think that it's certainly large enough to fit around the head. But I want this to be adult size, so I need it a little bit bigger. And I have a small head, but it's not quite this small. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then in stitch 7 we'll pop in our 2 stitches. Get a little bit more yarn here. So we'll do that one more time. So here is stitch number 1. Whoops. Got away from me there. Here's stitch number 2. Three. Stitch 4. 5. There's stitch 6. Oops, did it again. Sometimes it just goes really well, and other times not so much. So now I've lost count. What am I doing here? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now stitch 7, we're going to put in our 2 stitches. And I'm going to continue this all the way around. Okay, so finished up round 8, and I'm going to join in my first stitch with my slip stitch, and we'll have a total of 64 stitches. So we're chaining 1 and turning for round 9. So we'll increase by 8. So we're almost done to where we need the hat to be, but not quite. So there's stitch 1. We're doing a sequence of 8. 2. Oops. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. And now we'll be in stitch 8, and we'll put 2 stitches in there. So here's stitch 8, and we'll put 2 stitches. So I'm going to continue around, so you'll want to work your 7 stitches, and then in stitch 8 you're going to put your 2 stitches in, and just continue doing that all the way around for round 9. Okay, so we finished round 9, and I'm going to join in my first stitch. So after that we'll have a stitch total of 72. So we're going to chain 1 and turn for round 10. So now we're going to do a sequence of 9 for round 10, and after that we're going to have 80 stitches. So we'll do a quick sequence, and then for the rest of the rounds, and I'm not sure how many we'll need, we'll be done increasing after this round, and you're going to want to work even, and I will let you know how many rounds that will be, because I'm not sure yet. I'm making this hat on the fly here, so I'm not quite sure, but I think 80 stitches is going to be plenty big enough after we're done increasing here for round 10. So we are on stitch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then stitch 9, pop in 2, so stitch 9. So this is round 10, so then for round 11 you'll work even, so that just means 1 stitch in every stitch, and you'll just keep working your right and wrong side rounds, and I will meet you back when the hat is long enough. Okay, so where we left off was round 9, and we were increasing in a sequence of 9. So at the end of round 9 you would have 80 stitches, and then I said just to work even, and I worked even until round 17. So what you're going to want to do is when you think your hat is long enough, like around your eyebrow or your ear, then stop at an odd sized round. So I stopped at round 17. So now we're going to get ready for the next step, which is going to be working on ear flaps. So what you're going to want to do is you want to have the right side facing. So your next round would have been round 18 if you stopped on round 17. So that's right side. And what you'll want to do is, here is my tail, and this would be considered the back of the hat. So you would want to fold the hat in half. So see, I have it folded, and somewhere, I would say not halfway, but so you want to fold it. You're going to have your tail in the back. It doesn't have to be completely, you know, folded right at the tail, but this is where we've been joining, so obviously this is the back of the hat. So my tail is right here, you know, that's okay. So you want to have your hat folded, and then you're going to look at it, and somewhere I would say midway, not completely in the middle, but let's eyebrow it. Yeah, that sounds right. Let's eyeball it, not eyebrow it. Okay, so we're going to eyeball it right here. I'd say right about here. So what I want to do is I'm going to grab a stitch marker, and I'm going to mark the stitch right in front of it. So you can use a scrap piece of yarn. I'm using a safety pin, and I'm going to mark that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to count. So this is just making your life a little bit easier, just marking your stitches. Alright, so after you've marked your stitch, what you want to do is you want to count, because you're going to want to mark another stitch. So we are counting this stitch here. This is going to be 1 where we marked. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28. Oops, sorry about the camera. So I've marked, not marched. I can't talk, I apologize. So this is stitch 1. So this is, and then this is stitch 28 right here, and I'm going to mark that. So you're going to place your stitch markers there. And this is just so you know where to work, where to place your hook. It's just a little helpful tool there. And again, if you don't have stitch markers, you can use safety pins, bobby pins, scrap pieces of yarn. So in between your 2 safety pins is the front of your hat. So now we're going to get ready to be working on some ear flaps. So you're going to grab your yarn, your hook, and we want to work on the right side of the hat. So we have our safety pins here, or our stitch markers. So this is a right side round. So you want to make sure you're inserting the hook, and or you want to make sure that you start on the right side. So right next to my stitch marker there, I'm going to put my hook right next to it. And now I'm going to attach my yarn, just like that. And I'm going to continue to work all the way, I guess more than halfway around to the next stitch marker. So I've chained one, and I'm going to continue with the same stitch pattern. So right in that same stitch, oops, for some reason sometimes it just doesn't want to cooperate. So we're working in our herringbone stitch. Get in there. And you're just going to work this stitch all the way around until you get to the other stitch marker. And you should have a total, or actually I'm not sure what the total is, but you're going to work to the other. There's these stitches we didn't work here is 28. So I have 80 stitches. Let's see. So 80 minus 28. I'm having to do math, which is horrible. So I think that would be 52 stitches that we didn't work. I will confirm that. So I'm going to continue to stitch across here until I reach my other stitch marker. Alright, so I'm almost done this row. So this is actually rows now. So it is indeed 52 stitches. I did the math in my head. It was actually right. I confirmed that for you. So now I'm working right to that stitch marker. And we have a total of 52 stitches. So now we're just going to chain one, and we're going to turn, and we're just going to work row 2, the same stitch pattern. And now you can see why I also wanted to turn while we were working in the round, just to keep up with the stitch pattern. I kind of have a pet peeve of, like, let's say you're making a hat in the round, all single crochet, and then you do want to add ear flaps, and you have to turn, like, or I guess you could cut the yarn after each row. I just find that the symmetry is off. I mean, sometimes it's a design element and it's okay, but I kind of wanted this to look seamless in a way, I guess, so that's why we're turning as well. And I actually like the stitch pattern better when you turn, so there you go. Get off my soapbox now. Alright, so we're just going to continue for row 2. Alright, so I'm almost done row 2. And row 2 is the wrong side. So when we worked in rounds, the odd rows were the wrong side, but now when we're working in rows, the odd rows are the wrong side, or the right side. Sorry. Odd rows are right, wrong, even rows are wrong. Alright, so I have finished row 2, and row 2 is a wrong side row, and we are going to chain 1, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to work row 3. So as you've probably guessed, evens are odd-sided rows are the right side, even-sided rows are the wrong side. So we are going to work 2 more rows, and so when you are done row 4, I will meet you back here. So we've chained 1 and turned, so now we're on row 5, and now we are actually going to start on the ear flaps. We've kind of already started them, but we're going to really make it look like an ear flap now. So we're going to work 10 stitches in our herringbone stitch. So there's 2. Come on, baby. There we are. 3, 4. And I hope you've enjoyed this stitch. It's kind of fun, I think. 5, 6, stitch 7, 8, oops. Doesn't always go perfectly, as you can see. 9, and then one more in this stitch pattern. So this is 10. I just want to double check that I have 10 because I've been chatting here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so we have 10. I want a total of 12. So what we want to do, I don't want to have just such a sharp, because we're going to leave the rest of these not worked. So I want to make it a little bit more gradual. So our next stitch is going to be a half double crochet, and the next one will be a regular single crochet, just so it tapers a little bit more. And we're going to yarn chain 1, and we're going to turn, and now we're going to start some decreasing here. So we're going to start some decreasing here. We're going to work on some back loops. I'm just going to do a reverse of what I do because I don't like a real chunky looking stitch with this. So we're going to pick up a back loop right in the same stitch, pick up another back loop, and we're working a single crochet. So we have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, and then yarn over and finishing up the stitch. And now we're going to work in the herringbone stitch just like normal until we get to the last 2 stitches. And we're going to do a variation of a decrease of those stitches. Or together stitch, however you want to phrase it. I've been crocheting for a very, very long time. 23 years. And when I was learning, it was just decreased stitches. Together stitches were not a thing. But now they're called together stitches. So you say potato, I say potato. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Alright, so now we're at our last 2 stitches. We're going to yarn over. We're going to work on our back loop. So you're going to pull up a back loop stitch there, pull up a back loop stitch in your last stitch. So now we have 4 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over. We're going to pull through those first 2. Now we have our 3 loops like we would do a regular herringbone, and we're just going to do that. Finish that off. And now we should have a total of 10 stitches after decreasing twice. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So now we are going to chain 1 and turn. So now you can see our decreased stitches on there, and you know, they're not too thick. Sometimes when you work like a regular single crochet decrease or together, it just looks a little bit more bulky, and we're trying to avoid that. So we're going to just work even for this row. So yarn over, and we're going to work the herringbone stitch until we get to our last 2 stitches. So we're working 8 stitches in the regular herringbone, and then we're going to do the same thing. The last 2, 1 stitch is going to be a half double crochet, and the other stitch is going to be a single crochet, just to make it a little bit more gradual. So this is stitch number 8. So now for stitch 9, half double crochet, and stitch 10, single crochet. Just so it's not quite such a jump for the back there. And then we will just chain 1 and we'll turn. So now we are ready for row 8, and we're working our ear flaps still. So we're going to do the same thing of working the single crochet decrease, working in the back loop, so picking up back loop in the first stitch, so right in that same stitch, back loop in the next stitch. So yarn over, pull through those 2, and now we'll just finish off the stitch like a regular single crochet. And you're going to continue to work your herringbone stitch all the way across until you get to your last 2 stitches. And then we'll have a total of 8 stitches since we decreased by 2. So here's one more regular herringbone stitch. And now we are going to do the same thing with yarning over, working in the back loop, picking up the one, picking up the stitch in the other. So we'll yarn over, pull through those 2, and then we'll just continue to work the regular herringbone stitch. And then we will chain 1 and we'll turn. And now we're just going to work even for a total of 8 stitches. And remember, the last 2 stitches are going to be a half double crochet and then a single crochet. So there's our half double crochet, and there is our single crochet. So as you can see, we're starting to get smaller. Okay, so now we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we are going to get your loop smaller on your hook. Alright, so we've chained 1, we've turned, so now we're going to work a single crochet decrease again because we are on the wrong side. I believe we are on row 10. Yep, we're on row 10. So back loops, pick up a back loop in that first stitch, pick up a back loop in the second stitch, yarn over, and then just continue to work your herringbone stitch to your last 2, and then we'll do the herringbone decrease stitch in those last 2. And then you'll have a total of 6 stitches. So we are almost done. So here is our last 2. So we're yarning over. Here's our back loop, yarn over, pull through those 2 guys. Then we can continue on with our herringbone stitch. And then we'll chain 1 and turn for row 11, and we're just going to work even for row 11. And as you can see, it's pretty seamless of where you can barely even tell where we decreased. And that was the goal. Sometimes it's nice to see an obvious decrease or together stitch, but for this pattern I didn't want that. So it just depends on what you're going for. So here's our last 2. We're going to work half double crochet and then single crochet. So we'll chain 1 and turn. So we've chained 1 and turn for row 11. So back loop, doing our single crochet decrease, so picking up those 2 stitches in the back loop, completing our stitch, and then working across until the last 2, and then we'll have a total of 4 stitches. Here's our last 2. So back loops, yarn over, back loop in that guy, back loop in that one, yarn over, pull through those 2, and then whoops. Yeah, didn't want to do it. Was saying nope, not today. But too bad, it's happening. There we go. Now we can complete our stitch. and we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we'll just work even, and then remember the last 2. So you're just going to work 2 herringbones and then half double crochet and single crochet. So half double crochet and single crochet. So we'll chain 1 and turn our last time of decreasing. So back loop, finish up the stitch. Come on, what is going on with my yarn here? Alright, so now we're ready to decrease again. So yarn over, pick up in the back loop, yarn over. We'll just complete that stitch. And then for the next row, chaining 1, we're turning. We're just going to finish off with 2 single crochets. So there's 1. And there is our second. And then we are done with that ear flap. So what you'll want to do once you're finished with that one, you'll just need to cut the yarn, just like that. And then we'll get ready to work the other ear flap, because we want to have 2. Okay, so now we are on the other side of our hat. We have our right side facing, and we're going to want to do the same thing as the other side. It's just going to be slightly reversed. So you're going to want to count 12 stitches from the end. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There is stitch 12, and you'll just attach your yarn. And you have the right side facing. So we've attached our yarn, so you're going to chain 1, and because we worked single crochet on the other side in that last stitch, because we're reversing it, so we're going to pop in a single crochet, and then the next one would be a half double crochet, and then the rest of the stitches are our herringbone. So we'll work 10 in that because we just want to mimic the other side. Goodness gracious. Okay, this one doesn't want to cooperate on me. So we're at our last 2 stitches. So technically this is row 5. We're just picking up again. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. And so here we're going to start decreasing, and we are going to do the opposite. We're going to start our herringbone decrease first and then do the single crochet decrease at the end. So we'll chain 1, we'll turn, we yarn over, and right in that same stitch, pop in your back loop, yarn over, and then continue with the stitch. And just do that all the way across to your last 2 stitches. My yarn got caught. There we go. Technical difficulty with the yarn. So we're at our last 2 stitches. Nope, last 3. Sorry about that. Can't read my own work. I always say it's important to be able to read your work, and here I am not reading my own work. Alright, so now we're going to do the single crochet, decrease, a back loop, pull it up, back loop, pull it up, yarn over, pull through those 2, and then pull through. So now we've completed, this would be row 6. So you're just going to do the same thing as we did on the other side, but just opposite. You'll start when you're working on your wrong side rows is when you're doing the decreasing, and you'll start over here with your herringbone decrease and then end with your single crochet. And then when you're starting on your right side rows, those are the rows you work even. You're going to be starting with your single crochet and your half double crochet, and then ending the rest of the row in your herringbone stitch. So I will meet you back at the end. Alright, so now we've finished both ear flaps of our hat. So I think it's kind of cute. I kind of like the little curved thing that it creates, just something a little bit different. So now you can remove the stitch markers. So I'm going to pop those guys out of there. We're going to do just a couple little finishing things on our hat to really make it look cute. Cute and functional, I hope. Alright, so we are going to work on a border or some trim. So I'm just attaching my hook anywhere in the back of the hat. So wherever you want in the back, it really doesn't matter. So I'm just gonna pop it right there. And working on the right side. So anywhere in the back of the hat, you're going to want to attach some yarn. We're working on right side facing. So we're going to chain 1, and we're just going to work basic single crochet all the way around, and you will be working around the ear flaps as well. So just a little thing to remember when you're working around the ear flaps, just remember how many stitches you did so that they match for both sides. So if you need to jot it down, certainly feel free to do that, because you're going to be working on some of the ends of the rows. So it will be noticeable if you have more stitches in one than the other. So here I've come to my first ear flap. So you'll just work on the ends of the rows, and again, as I said before, just want to eyeball it, to wherever it looks nicest. Like, I don't know, that might be kind of a big hole there, not really feeling it. So if you just want to pick up some stitches there, and see, that looks better. So I'm just going to continue to do that for this ear flap, and then I will try to match it for the other one. Okay, so I'm almost done working my single crochet all the way around. So here is an ear flap, so you can see we worked all the way around the ear flap. So this is my last stitch. Sorry for bumping the camera. Actually, I'm going to want to change to another color because we have one more round just to give it a finishing touch. Okay, I'm almost done working my single crochets, so I'm going to pop in my last stitch, and we're going to do one more round, and I want to use a contrasting color. You don't have to, you can keep this all one color if you want to, but I want to have a contrasting color, so I'm going to pop in some red, and then I'm going to join right in my first stitch, and then get ready. Whoops, come on, guy. There we go. Get ready to do my final round. Okay, so for our final round, we're going to do reverse single crochet. So if you've never done that before, I will show you. And it's also called crab stitch. So it basically, I mean, what you're doing is an actual single crochet and you are reversing it. So normally if you crochet right-handed, you crochet from right to left. If you crochet left-handed, then you crochet left to right. So you're just going to go in the opposite direction. So I am actually going to crochet from the right. So starting on my left, crocheting from the right, like I'm reading a book. And then if you were crocheting a left-handed crocheter, then you would do starting at your left, or I'm sorry, starting at your right and then crocheting to the left. Alright, so it's a little tricky, but it's not too bad, and you just want to watch your tension and keep your stitches even. So I have my hook on my loop on my hook, and so I'm just going, so normally I'm a right-hander, I would want to pop my hook in there, but I want to do the opposite, so I'm going to go right back in that same stitch, pull up my loop, I have my 2 loops, and then you yarn over just like you normally would, and then I'm going to go in the next stitch. So just be relaxed. You want your stitches to be nice and even. I think it provides like a nice, kind of like a rope-like finish in a way. Oops. Come on, there we go. This yarn is squeaky. That's not good. It's that acrylic in it. So I'm going to keep doing my reverse single crochet or crab stitch